In this week's Torah portion, Aharei, Rabbi Yaakov Abuhatzierah is going to talk about certain problematic sexual fantasies, and the Maggid of Zlotchov is going to give us a tip about giving tzedakah, sort of, a schooler for sustaining our family. So we'll start with Rabbi Yaakov Abuhatzierah. So Rabbi Yaakov looks at the verse that tells us, that you shouldn't sleep with your friend's wife, right? Because then it's tameh. It's a transgression. You can't, you sleep with your wife, not with your mate's wife. But Rabbi Yaakov notices the wording of the pasuk. The wording says, it says that you can't spill seed in the wife of your mate. And he says that there are some that explain this to mean that only chas v'chalila, sort of meaning you can sleep with your wife's mate, but only if you don't spill seed. And he says surely that's not the issue, rather there are deeper secrets hidden in here, and this is the way Rabbi Yaakov is going to explain this. And he says, we know that the Chazal, the sages have taught us that, a man shouldn't drink from a cup and yearn another cup. And what are we talking about here? You shouldn't be sleeping with your wife and yearning, having sexual fantasies of another man's wife. And he says this is why the verse talks about seed. Because the scenario is as follows. Rabbi Yaakov is warning us. He says, if you sleep with your wife, and while you're sleeping with your wife, you have sexual fantasies of your mate's wife, and then you spill seed, that's a recipe for bearing a mamzer, for bearing an unwanted child. And he interprets, what does mamzer mean? Mumzar, an alien blemish. So, it's something that wasn't part of that cohabitation. It wasn't part of that sacred sexual union. Rather, your thoughts were elsewhere, hence ruining that whole moment on all levels possible. So that's his. I wish rabbis spoke like this today, right? He says, what he even says, why doesn't the verse just say, don't have sex with your mate's wife? That's what he says. He says, why tell me about spilling the seed? That's why, because it's actually talking about when you're sleeping with your wife and what thoughts you have, and you shouldn't have those thoughts. So that's Rabbi Yaakov on the verse to do with marital relations. And then comes the Maggid of Zlotchov, and this is beautiful. The Maggid of Zlotchov, so at the start of the Torah portion, the sons of Aaron die, and two of the sons, and God comes to Moses and says to him, right, no one's coming into my sanctity at the moment without certain conditions. And we are told that the Maggid of Zlotchov had given a drasha by his father Rabbi Yitzchak about this verse. And his father Rabbi Yitzchak would say, it says in the Gemara, right, that there's a oset tzedakah becholet, right? Someone who gives tzedakah, at any given time. This is someone who is in fact, how do you do this? It's by giving to your children, making sure that your kids have what to eat, sustaining your family when they're young, your children when they're young. That's giving tzedakah at all time. Now, the Maggid's father, Rabbi Yitzchak, said, I could understand from this that all the world is then, doesn't need to give tzedakah to others. Rather, understand from this, he says, and then why does we need the verse then in our Torah portion that says, God says you may not come into my sanctity at any moment, meaning you always need to give tzedakah to others. You are never exempt. You only ever need to give tzedakah to others. That is the only way that you can continue ensuring that you can be part of my sanctuary. And then the Maggid of Zlotchov comes and gives a chidosh on his father's words and says, in the way I interpret this to mean, and this is a tip, if you always make sure to give tzedakah to others, then surely God will make sure that you're young and that your family will always be sustained. Thoughts on the Torah portion of Aharei, Rabbi Yaakov and the Maggid. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.